Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video I will be making my first ever pair of shoes. It will be kind of like a walkthrough of how you make shoes. I have a last which I've made on my 3D printer. I have a pink knife and I have some leather. Now, the first step you want to do is get your last. I made this last, as I said, on my 3D printer. You can buy lasts online. You can make lasts out of wood, which is one of the most common ways to make lasts. 3D printing lasts might not be the best option, honestly, because it's kind of brittle, the plastic can easily break. It's good enough for my purposes. You'll need the last, and together with the last, you're gonna have to have some leather. I'm using really thin leather. It's not really supple, it's kind of stiff. I'm using this leather for the sole only. This is not gonna be a leather construction shoe. It's gonna be a leather soled shoe with a fabric. This is black corduroy, and for the lining, I'm using this pretty cheap black cotton fabric. The type of shoe that I am making is what's called a turn shoe. Turn shoes are way easier to make than elastic shoes. What you do first of all is you shape the sole leather to the last. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to take a leather, you're going to take a hammer. You do not have to use a hammer like this, just really could not be bothered to like go get a hammer. Now you're going to use that to beat your tiny little shoemaker's nails through the leather and into the nest. These nails are very small and they are really hardware stores, but they're also like super inexpensive. So what you do is you place the leather on top of the last. You just take the nails and you beat the nails through the leather and into the last. You want to put one nail in the heel, one right in what is here, the small of the foot, like the waist, the smallest point. Going to follow along to this and try to make your own shoes, do not sit on the floor. Find it. When you have fastened the leather to the last, you are going to go around the leather and you are going to trace it down to the shape of the foot. It's important to have sharp knives for this. You can see that I have got the sole leather at least a little better shaped to the foot, but only in the two-dimensional plane. Now we get to the really fun part that involves just beating the shit out of the leather for a half an hour to get it to shape to the foot in a three-dimensional way. If you have any like repressed anger, do feel free to just take it the fuck out of this leather. because what we want is we want to beat the fibers of the leather to the point where they keep the structure of the foot of the last beneath it. I have soaked the number one cure for stiff and unpliable leather is water. Fun fact: shoemakers are not in fact called cobblers. Cobblers are the people who repair shoes. The shoemakers are actually called cordwainers. If you are making turn shoes in this way, you really don't want to wear them outside for two main reasons. Reason one, this is a really thin sole, and due to the nails being driven through it, it will leak. So, especially during winter or if it rains, you will get wet feet. Due to the 3 holes and the method of stitching we're going to use, you will get a little wet on your feet. After a good few minutes of hammering away, you should have now a piece of leather that sticks to the bottom of the last on its own. Follows the contours of the last really beautiful. Honestly, we are kind of done with the sole for now. We will not need to do anything else with the sole before we start stitching the uppers onto it. But I'm not really all that happy about how I managed to shape this specific sole leather, so I am going to just shave a few parts off that I didn't personally like. You can skip ahead to the part of the video where I start talking about the uppers. Now I have taken out, I just took a little bit out of the waist. We're gonna take the nails out, and then we're gonna get started on the uppers. The uppers are, as I said, going to be made out of fabric. I'm gonna drape the uppers onto the shoes. The really quite simple way I'm going to do this is that I am going to start putting some nails into this fabric, just to hold it in place so that I can get it snug in all the places I want it snug, and loose in all the places I need it loose. So I'm gonna start here to toe. Of course, most of this is gonna get, chopped off. Try and get this thing shaped to the last. So what we want to do is slowly start putting nails into the last on the bottom to where this lays flat across the last, kind of like this. If you want to do this the right way, I would suggest covering the last in masking tape or something similar, so that you could sketch directly onto the last and then cut your design out with something like an X-Acto blade, because then you get pretty close to what you want the end design to be on flat paper. It doesn't need to be perfect. You want to change which side you're working on, so that you don't over tighten one side before you get to move to the other. This is not the only time we're going to have to tighten the fabric to the last in this way. The most common way to make the fabric sit around the last in this way is to use what's called a shoemaker's hammer. And a shoemaker's hammer is a really neat tool that has that is a hammer with pliers built into it, but not like this. I'll put a picture up on screen so you can see. They are really great tools for shoemaking. To be perfect. My hammer is broken. Kind of like the trick I mentioned earlier, where you use tape and draw directly on the tape to get a pattern. We are going to just place the fabric directly onto the last and draw on the last with chalk to get our pattern. Having gotten this draped around the fabric, it is time to start patterning. Now I want a pattern that looks kind of like Prince Albert slippers. Now Prince Albert slippers have this really nice looking tongue slash vamp going right here, cutting down, I don't know if you can see any of this, then going down into a slipper kind of shape going around the foot. A really simple shoe to make, and you can do it with pretty much only one seam going down the back, because you see it's just the tongue up here going into the sides. Now we're going to put lining fabric inside this whole thing, and then it's a simple stitch on the back. Make sure everything lines up, and then we're going to draw a line down the center back of the heel to get the seam position, and then having gotten the upper off the last, we can see that shape-wise we just have to cut out that, which is really very simple. You of course want to cut a little bigger for seam room. That leaves us with this very basic shape for the shoe. The next step is that we want to just copy it onto the lining fabric. Take the outer upper, place it onto the lining, and we're just going to pin it down. That's it. You can use pretty much any neutral color of cotton or linen as your lining. Linen is probably the better lining over cotton, because linen wicks sweat at a much higher rate and is also naturally antimicrobial, and is a very soft material to have directly against your skin if you're going to wear these as slippers, for instance, like I'm going to wear mine. But I'm going to use cotton because I had some cotton laying around. After doing that, that leaves us with this, where we have the outer fabric, we have the lining fabric. Now comes one of the more tedious tasks. If you have a sewing machine, you should probably do this part on the sewing machine. I have a sewing machine, but I don't have a sewing machine on the floor. I'm gonna sew by hand. Probably a really poor decision. I can already sense that my back is going to start hurting from sitting like this on the floor. Bad decision making is a trademark of mine, so I am going to sew this by hand. My bed is fine, so my back's probably gonna be fine too. Let's hope. Now, I'm just gonna pin some of the more important parts for the sewing here, and then I am going to stitch it all together with some black thread. I'm gonna use a simple back stitch for all of this. What thread you use is not really that important. You can use linen thread, you can use silk thread, you can use the cheapest bottom of the barrel thread that you can find at like Walmart. It doesn't matter, just use whatever. But you probably should not be using the thinnest stuff you have. Shoes are some of the most worn clothing you can possibly get, so don't use like titsy witsy little tiny thread. Whatever you're doing, it's gonna be fine. It's shoes, mate. It's shoes. It's gonna be fine. Remember, kids, always go for the easiest option. Never do more than you have to. If you are following along with this video, do not sit on the floor. You will get like medical issues. It's not good for your back. I'm getting pretty close to the finish of this hair stitch. Going around just the edge, stitching together the lining and the outer uppers. Once you have them stitched together, it's time to turn them inside out. And you can see they go over my feet just fine. What we're gonna want to do is we're gonna just make sure that they're edge to edge. What you could do here is you could press them like with an iron. You can iron them, like get the seam nice and neat. All that is fine and dandy, and I will probably do it before the end of the project altogether. what you want to do is you want to get the edges nicely lined up, get the lining and the outer nicely lined up, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pin it for ease. What you could do is you could iron it, and that would be better technically, but it would take longer. I would need to, get up off the floor. You remember when we marked out where the heel was, there were a problem. I've been filming this all on my phone, and my phone ran out of storage while I was recording the last segment. But all I really did in the last segment was that I very quickly stitched together the heel. You saw me stitch the lining to the outer, and the only thing you really missed out on when my camera got too black abruptly was me just really quickly back stitching the heel into place. When you've got the heel stitched, it turns into a really shoe-like shape. This is very close to being a shoe. The only thing you need to do now is to put this into there. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna take the last of the other foot. So right now I'm making the left shoe, so I'm gonna take my right foot shoe last. I'm gonna put the shoe upper onto it inside out. That is what makes this a turn shoe as opposed to a welted shoe. The shoe is made inside out. So you put the sole on first. What you're simply gonna do is you're gonna nail the sole onto the last, just like we did in step 1. You simply nail the sole onto the last, just like in step 1. We've got the sole tacked on. We need to make sure that the waist lines up, the heel, the toe, all of that needs to line up. We take the upper, and as I've said, we turn it inside out. Probably difficult to see on the video, seeing as both the lining and the outer material is black. And then we put it onto the last. Put a little nail. This is the shoemaking part. What you are going to do is put the fabric over the last and the sole this time. So it's going to be on top of the sole. We're going to take some nails. We are not going to hammer the nails all the way into the last. We only want to hammer it into the leather, into the sole. Not all the way through, just slightly into the leather. Now it is time to do the actual leather stitches. For this section, we're going to need some shoemaking thread. We're going to take this shoemaker's twine, and we're going to take this just stabbing holes into the leather to get the holes. We're going to stab the holes first and put the twine through afterwards. I like starting at the waist. We're going to put the tool in. We're going to push it through the leather. You can see here, what we're going to do is we're going to put it into the leather. We want the tool to come out along the edge of the leather. Then we need to push it through the fabric itself. Bring the needle through the hole, making sure that there is an equal amount of thread on either side of the hole. That is the first hole finished. About 1/8 of an inch for each stitch here. making sure that the thread comes through that hole from both sides. In the hole, there is a tiny little knot. Been working for a few hours, and here is the result. You can see the stitches going through the sole and the upper all the way around. This is a 360-degree stitch. I'll take these nails out. Flip it around again. They flip really quite easily with these thin soles. Slip the shoe on, and we see the fit on the sole there. It's pretty good. The fit around the foot, marvelous.